Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, members of the academic staff, graduates and your families and supporters here in such numbers, and this is your big day, of course, ladies and gentlemen. May I confess right at the start that when I was preparing these remarks, I was not quite aware of the situation of the people in front of me here. I now know that you are not graduands, as I was anticipating, but in fact already graduates, some of you over the last 2 years. So I don't get the wording quite right in what I say later. I hope you will forgive me. But as this is a celebration, may I help to get the celebration going by inviting the graduates here to turn to the person on their left and the person on their right, shake their hands and saying, "Well done, congratulations." Would you do that? I'm very grateful to my university for the great honour that has done me through the bestowing of this honorary degree, and for the recognition that is given to what I've tried to achieve in science education and communication. So I start by congratulating the graduates here. You have reached the end of your years of study. Well, it was some time ago for some of you, and you are entitled to be proud of yourselves and no doubt are your families. It is 60 years since I was here in your place, at a time when this campus had only 700 students and hardly any of the buildings you see here today. And I must say it's good to be back among you. May I suggest that now is a good time for you to reflect on what you gained from your time here and how your experiences have fitted you for the life ahead, the life into which you've already moved. Through your interaction with other students of widely varying backgrounds who are being challenged by new ways of thinking and viewing the world. You gained your qualification, but I suggest you have gained much more. I cannot say that I was an outstanding student when I was here. My honours degree was Class 2, Division 2, so at least I turned up. I do not blame these modest results on my teachers. I received some excellent teachers. I think particularly of Alvin Horadam, who we called Horry, who introduced me to the wonders of projective geometry. Great stuff. But I was rather, the fault in my modest attainments as mine, I was rather too wrapped up in extracurricular activities, clubs and societies. I was in fact president of 3 societies in my honours year. Not an ideal recipe for academic success. But I did get that much valued, well-rounded education for which I am grateful. And I do not think my career was notably diminished by being only a moderately successful student. Some of my mates scored first-class honours and university medals and went into full-time research and academia. I, on the other hand, from my beginnings, had the opportunity to spend half a century exploring what I might call the many highways and byways of science and technology. So if what I might call my quilted career contains a number of elements which the Vice-Chancellor has already mentioned. I did some research, I was teaching at secondary and tertiary levels, opportunities to influence young minds. And then, as it was said, I tried to reach a wider audience through radio and TV. Some of your parents and grandparents might remember me on radio and TV. I think you will not. I also spent time as a TV weatherman. So I was helping non-specialists come to terms with what science meant for them. I wrote some popular science books. I shaped government policy. And I must say, I loved every minute of it. Now, such a career path is not for everyone. Many of you, as I can see from the number of red gowns here, for example, have concentrated on maximising your marks and your academic excellence. And well done if you have. Highly skilled and knowledgeable graduates are vital in all areas of our modern society, and you have been well prepared here. We are proud of and will always need outstanding scholarship. As a university community, we will also always value all levels of academic achievement. And what you have attained so far may not be the end of your academic journey. Certainly it was not of mine. Has prepared you for your life in its many dimensions, provided you with the skills and the knowledge you need to seize and profit from the opportunities and experiences that life presents, and there will be many. The first job you get will almost certainly not be the job you take for life. That was certainly true for me. So let me say a little bit about my first big unexpected opportunity and experience. It still resonates for me, and the Vice-Chancellor has already referred to this. A few years after leaving here, I saw newspaper ads calling for people to train as weather observers to go to Antarctica. I've been interested in Antarctic ever since reading Scott's diaries, Robert Scott's diaries, dealing with his failed and fatal attempt to reach the South Pole. The man who interviewed me saw that I had a physics degree. We have a lot of applications for trainee Met men, he said. It was all men then, by the way, back then. But we are a physicist short this year. Would you like to go? Silly question. And that's how, at the age of 24, I found myself in a boat headed south at the beginning of a memorable year at Mawson Base, some 3,000 kilometres away on the Antarctic coast, almost under South Africa. The three of us who were there, the 23 of us, lived through the long dark winter and on the light-filled summer when the sun never set. We were in touch with nature in its most raw and unforgiving. There's no way quite like it. I urge you to go there if you can. I've been back twice for short trips. The one most memorable of those was in 2012. There we sailed to a place called Commonwealth Bay on the Antarctic coast, due south of us, where 100 years before, our most famous Antarctic explorer Douglas Mawson and his men had built wooden huts which still stand in what he called the home of the blizzard. These are the iconic Mawson's huts. To go inside those huts, as I was privileged to do, to see the names of men carved on the sides of the wooden bunks where they spent the year, or 2 years for some of them, is to tread on holy ground. You hardly dare breathe. Mawson was a geologist and he went there mostly to do science. I went there to do science. Many expeditioners have done since. Doing science in Antarctica is, I suggest, never been more important, not least, of course, of its key role in the great existential challenge of climate change. The polar regions are warming faster than the planet as a whole, and the warming seas are already causing ice shelves to collapse, to unplug the flow of ice from the glaciers that have held them back. Sea rise has begun and will get worse, and other impacts are emerging. But it need not be catastrophic. There is much we can do to fight off the worst effects, though it's too late to stop them all. And that's where you can come in. Your degree might be in business or agriculture or law, as well as in science. But confronting the future will need you all to appreciate how science has helped to understand the impact of our activities on the natural world. So what can you do? Well, I'd urge you to be informed. There's plenty of information available. None of it is secret on the internet, but you must apply your academic training, your sense of discrimination, critical thinking to assessing the value and strength of that information. Some of it is wrong, deliberately. And always remember that it is the evidence that counts. You could, I suggest, go as far as reading the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Now, it's a heavy read, I admit, but it is based on the best research and it's the best available material. And I might also suggest you try and see if your Member of Parliament has read it, though I suspect he or she might have other things on their minds right at the moment. Science, of course, is not infallible. Over the centuries and millennia, scientists, researchers have turned off on many a false trail. We used to think that the unmoving Earth was the centre of the cosmos and everything went round it. There are many others similar to those. Errors, theories rejected nowadays. Now, the researchers who held those opinions, which were some great names, were not perverse or blind, Generally, the ideas that they were holding to fitted the facts as they were understood at the time. But as the enterprise of science grew, as methods of investigation improved over decades and centuries, the evidence built up to a point where the old explanations no longer fitted. And so they were dumped, though not generally overnight, and new interpretations brought in to better account for the observed facts and to better predict what else might be discovered. In this way, science is self-correcting, provided its findings are widely and freely disseminated, and that is the source of its strength and utility and its power to shape the world that we live in. But we have to be willing to go where the evidence leads. That accumulations of certain gases in our atmosphere caused by human activity are warming our planet has been proposed firstly 150 years ago. It's not a new idea. And the evidence for the anthropogenic climate change hypothesis, that we are changing the climate, goes stronger year by year. But other explanations are being put forward, that changes in the sun are causing the warming, or that the culprit gases are being released by undersea volcanoes. Nothing wrong with alternative theories being put forward. Science proceeds through the contest of ideas. But where the evidence failed to support such alternatives, and it does fail, they should be set aside. That they still have currency shows that in such disputes it's not enough to rely just on the evidence, though the evidence must be central. We commonly have to frame the issue in ways which has a more personal appeal or adds emotional overtones. I take these issues seriously, not only because the evidence looks sound, but because if it is sound, the future of my grandchildren is at risk. I've always been fascinated by the intersection between science and history. How have we come to know what we know, scientifically? How have we come to do what we can do in terms of technology? Looking at it this way tells the story of science and technology, not just as an assembly of facts and capabilities, but as an immense human endeavour over centuries, shaped by human conditions at the time and in return shaping them. From such a perspective, we learn there was a time when we did not know what we know now and could not do what we can do now. High school students today know more about the structure and history of the cosmos than did Galileo and Newton. We can also anticipate immense future growth in scientific understanding and technological capacity through the lives which lie before you. And so many of you will be contributing to that growth. How I envy your prospects. I often think that the most exciting time to be alive, at least in terms of potentialities and possibilities, is the time you are currently living. I believe it is so now, that it's always been, and that it will continue to be so. So be ready to seize any opportunities that come your way, as I did with Antarctica, which led me into new and unexpected directions. Your time here has prepared you very well for that. I congratulate you again on your achievements, wish you every success, and thank you for listening.